disabilities.
Yeah, I was the
It's
treasurer.
really their game.
Okay,
So,
Peter,
like,
I'm gonna come over there. I'm gonna mic you up there,
Sure.
buddy.
Okay.
We're already rolling, just so you know. So, oh, this happens a lot where I drop the
Again?
microphone. It's tremendous. There you go.
Don't worry, it's all good.
Tremendous there, Peter. You just snapped on there. Maybe not too much reverb. Just keep your head down there. That's good there, buddy. Well, we're gonna get rolling. We're gonna get rolling on our next stop on the Road of Life podcast with John Miller. We are at the Amal Community Center on High Street in Moncton, New Brunswick with Peter Jongeneelen. How are you, Peter?
I'm doing well. Jongeneelen is my last name. I know it's a hard one to spell and everything and hard to pronounce, but don't worry about it.
So how is that last name pronounced, Peter?
Jongeneelen.
Okay, so Jongeneelen. Now, some folks I know, I've known you for years, they call you Joglington, and that is a severe mispronunciation. I'm sure that I am probably guilty of that too, Peter, and I apologize. But boys, oh boys, Peter, the road of life is quite a thing, and as I'm going to point out, just to your right there, if you want to grab that cane and show it there. So are you what they call legally blind?
Yes. What I have is called peripheral dispersion glaucoma.
Okay.
So it's worse in my left. Like right now, I've got my hand up like this.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, they know they can see that. Well, I can't.
Okay. You're
Here's
also
where I can see it.
so on your shirt as well, and I know right away folks are going to be curious. So you have a shirt on that says ACORN, that red shirt with white lettering says ACORN. We're going to talk about that later, but you are also are you a president in the ACORN organization?
Yes, ACORN basically is a union for people of low and moderate income. We recently have formed Moncton ACORN, to which I was elected the chair. So less than a month old, but it is ACORN's newest chapter in Canada.
Okay.
There's around 40 different neighborhood chapters, and we're in 6 provinces.
Excellent. So we've just established some curiosities right off the hop, Peter. This is about your life story as well, because life is a road and a lesson journey, as we all know. Peter, let's go back to where you were born, who your parents were, and where were you born?
Well, I was born in London, Ontario, just a couple hours outside of Toronto, so southwestern Ontario. It's a beautiful place out there and that. I just found that living in London, with my parents and everything, we never really had a whole lot of money growing up and this sort of thing. So I kind of figured out life as, do whatever you can with whatever you've got. And, think outside of the box sometimes, like my mom, she was what I would call the original first generation recycler, like in the 70s and 80s. You buy the sandwich bags and stuff like this. We'd always be told as kids, bring them back. She would wash them out, clean them right up. We'd reuse them 3, 4, 5 times in a row until they're gone, right? A lot of stuff like that. My grandfather and my father, on my father's side, came from Holland. So I am actually first generation Dutch Canadian. They came over at the end of the Second World War.
A lot of Dutch people came over after the Second World War.
Oh yeah, my grandfather was from what I understood, quite the character. Especially here in the Second World War, he was one of those ones where, the sneaky kind on this wasn't with the Dutch resistance, but pretty much was in the background pointing them in the right direction, kind of on the side.
There was a lot of that, yeah,
Oh,
sure.
Yeah, my father had told me stories when my father came over here. He was, I believe, 4 years old, and he was telling me stories about when he was really, really young. My grandfather used to sit at the back of the Catholic Church, and if one of the German soldiers came in, sometimes they just come in and have a look around. Well, all of a sudden, my grandfather would kind of start coughing or clearing his throat and giving the signal to the ones who were basically with the resistance, talking about whatever on the side, they're like, okay, good, we got the signal. So little things like that, but that's kind of something that I've learned, not just from my one grandfather, but from my other grandfather, is, I'm a middle child in a family with three brothers, with three sisters and one brother. So being that middle child, sometimes I found that I was always looking for that attention, kind of that middle child syndrome. I was a little bit rebellious when I was younger, but then I figured out, you know what? A little bit of rebellion is not bad. Just make sure that rebellion, you're doing it for good. As my grandfather always said to me, was, there's such a thing as good trouble. Bad trouble is, you're getting in it, you're doing crime, you're drinking, you're doing drugs, all those sort of things. That's the bad trouble. But the good trouble is, you're kind of saying, hold on a second, something's not right and something's got to be done. Mm-hmm. That's kind of something that I've always been kind of advocated for. It has got me in trouble though with a couple times with different jobs that I've been in where they're like, what are you doing? Well, yeah, if this is not safe, sorry, but we're not doing this. We shouldn't be doing this. It happens.
That happens on the road of life sometimes. So Peter, you were in Ontario, and then when did you wind up leaving Ontario?
Well, I left in June of 1999. The reason that I left is that I'd been working in restaurants ever since graduating high school. I'm 56 now, and what I found was, I was turning 28 at the time, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's just, I'm getting nowhere with this job. Like, I had started there as just a regular Joe working part-time, then full-time, then I got assistant manager, then I became the night shift manager, but then there's nowhere else to go. So the people who owned it was a great family business. The owner was the general manager, and his daughter, well, she was the head manager, and then there was me. Well, I'd taken that as far as I could go. I did work other jobs on the side and that. And, you meet a lot of interesting people. I did hang around around in the bars and that when I was young. Just doing the regular kind of stuff when you're young.
Did you have visual challenges then? Were you born that way, or did they come as life went on?
Well, I've always known that there was a history of sight issues within my family. My mom was losing her sight, and that, so I kind of knew that it was hereditary. But yeah, later on, kind of into my 30s, I started to notice that things were not quite right.
Were you driving a car when you were younger and stuff?
Yeah, and I think the one thing that really prompted me to really have a look at this was, I found when I was trying to drive down the road, and anyone who drives down the road, you're in the right lane, and you gotta pass somebody, so you look in your left. Well, I have to take my whole eyes off the road. I almost ran into another car in front of me.
Oh my.
And that's one of those things. I'm like, something is wrong. I went to the doctor, and it's like, yeah, you've definitely got something wrong with your eyes and that. It took me a little while to kind of really accept that. I had a lot of, my son was just born, Eric. He's going to be 22 now. And my daughter, Alexa, she's going to be 21 this year. Mm-hmm. Sorry, she's going to be 20 this year. I apologize. And I was kind of like feeling bad about this because I'm like, are my kids going to understand this? How are they going to take it? My ex-wife, my ex-fiance, I'm sorry, mm-hmm. Who is their mother, she had a little bit of trouble trying to deal with that because all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I've got to drive everywhere all the time mm-hmm. with you, the kids, all
So this. When did you find out you were going to be having problems like this
around I'd say about 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
well, actually,
After you
no.
moved out here
No, actually, yeah, after I'd moved out here and that.
to the Maritimes, to New Brunswick, Canada,
Yeah,
Moncton area.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, another thing that woke me up to this too was, I used to work in a lobster plant, just sorting, packing. Then I worked a job overnight, cleaning the plant. Well, one day I tripped and fell over something that most people would see in your way, and I'm like, I got injured, and that's kind of where all this kind of snowballed. And undiagnosed things like vision loss and that without it being treated, can lead to things like dizzy spells, headaches, this sort of thing. So I knew there was something wrong, but I didn't give up on it. What I did was, when they said working in that lobster plant is no longer a good idea for you, first question I asked is, okay, so I'm gonna go on employment insurance. Yeah, okay, I wanna go back to school, and I wanna try and get something that is a different career. So I went to school in 2008, and
So now you're living in Atlantic Canada. In 1999, you made the move to Atlantic Canada. You're in the Greater Moncton area now, are you?
yeah, oh yeah, I've been in the Greater Moncton area since I believe 2012.
Okay, so you made that jump in '99. Just for perspective,
Oh, yeah.
you're finding out your vision issues. You're working in a seafood processing plant, and so now we'll carry from there and pick it up there.
Oh yeah. Working in the seafood processing plant, great place to work and everything like that, but you need full sight to do things. So when my diagnosis hit, they were like, "You're never gonna drive a car," and I'm like, "Okay, once in a while I drive a boat." And it's not a great idea. I do use the forklift occasionally. Can't do that either. So I'm like, ew, what am I gonna do? Because I began to realize, you're working in a plant and there's a lot going on. I mean, peak season, there was 300 people working in that facility. If I'm driving a forklift and I have no idea what's on the left side of me, I'm sorry, I'm a hazard to myself and everyone around me, especially if I'm on the forklift. Because, we're carrying around thousands of pounds of lobster. I don't want to run into anybody or hurt anybody, and it got to that point where, hey, I had to do something. I mean, I always look at it, how does what's going on with me, how does it affect people around me as well? So moving on to a new career though, seemed to be like a good thing to do. So I went to, it was Compy College in St. John, and I took a job I took a course for business management and a sales specialist. From there, I went to work for Xerox.
What year was that?
That was early 2009, and I worked there for 3 years. I loved the job. The job was basically big commercial presses, so big printing press equipment. I went and basically it was outbound calling to all kinds of different commercial printers in the U.S. At that time, in the U.S. there was kind of like somewhat of a housing crisis, economic crisis. So a lot of businesses were basically closing down or toning down what they were doing, especially in the printing business, or it was two companies coming together as one. Big job in this was trying to figure out, A, are they still open? B, what are they printing? C, what else are they doing? And try and get like the local Xerox sales reps in the door. I found it really good, but I've always been one that thinks outside of the box. At that time, a lot of these commercial printers, they were just doing like newspapers and flyers. Here I am going, hold on, what about this wide format, these signs, these banners, these printing on cups and t-shirts and all this? And they're like, ooh, I'm like, yeah. Even though some of that equipment wasn't sold by Xerox, it was kind of sold through Xerox because of the inks and toners and this sort of stuff. So it was finding new opportunities for that. And I kind of left that job though because of like cutbacks.
So when did you leave it?
I left that right around, let me see here, probably about 2003, 2000, no, actually, sorry, 2014, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't the job for me. I found it was a lot of high pressure, sell, 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 and, and sometimes it's like, somebody can't afford something, don't try and push it on them, and that was my biggest problem with that is I'd send the leads to the guys in the field would go, yeah, don't try and sell him that $52,000 machine. Let's sell him the $100,000 machine. And I'm like, he doesn't need that. He doesn't have the budget for that.
Mm-hmm.
And little things like that, I kind of, it wasn't my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more about helping people than anything else.
Excellent. It seems like down through your life, there's been a strong sense of social justice and things like that. And you are a passionate activist for affordable living and an anti-poverty activist. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Well, I've always kind of looked at it this way. You know what? I see so many people out there that life is just knock them down, knock them down, knock them down, knock them down. I mean, I live on the 200 block of High Street in Moncton.
Yeah.
Down the road, there's a there's the food bank that's in the neighborhood. There is a homeless shelter that's here.
That's right.
All these sort of things. And I see it all the time, these people walking down the road, and they don't want to be in a homeless shelter. They don't want to have to go to a soup kitchen. They just, they just want to feel like, they're valued there and they aren't proud of this. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they're just like, they're so, I can't do anything.
So where did ACORN eventually come into your life?
Well,
and what is ACORN? Tell us again, what is ACORN?
ACORN actually stands for Association of Community Organizations for Reform. So ACORN is a social justice group. It's a union of people of low and moderate income. We fight for the rights of low and income people through peaceful actions on this. Not saying that we don't make a little bit of noise, but we're not one of these ones that's going to be like, we're blocking the doors, nobody's getting in, and we're going to shut down the business for the day. That's the business people getting paranoid, thinking that we're going to do that, and I just kind of, But I basically joined ACORN after, in 2020, during COVID. There was suddenly a lot of moves here with landlords to basically either sell their places and off to other people and then kind of move away, and then there was a lot of influx into the province. And that's what I found was the place that I was at, and I love my old landlord, he was a great guy, but he was 72 years old, and him and his wife, it was a mom and pop. He had our house, which was 3 units. There was another one that he had, I believe, was 2 units, and then he had a 3-story walk-up with 12 units. So he's 72 years old, his wife's 68. They're trying to maintain and take care of, I would say that's 17 units of housing. That's quite a bit, So he just said, look, I've got to sell this place because I've got to kind of slow down in life, and I'm pretty much looking at retirement. Which I don't blame him. The place went for sale, and immediately real estate agents came to see it, and oh my, I was like, for real estate agents and the way that they acted, especially during COVID, was just unbelievable. They would call up and be like, oh, we want to see the place. We'll be there in an hour. Thanks, bye. And it's like, whoa, hold on. I think you have to give 24 hours written notice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure on this. So I started checking in on this. Well, one thing led to another, and some of these real estate agents, they were like, you're the tenant, you know what, whatever, we're selling the place, whatever, just let us do this. Okay, but I don't want somebody here showing the place at this time, and then 2 hours later somebody else shows up, and 2 hours later, I mean, they were even coming on Sundays and holidays, and I'm like, this is too much, you know. I actually had to stop a guy one day. He showed up at 8:30 at night to walk in, and I'm like, no, you can't show this place past 8 o'clock at night. I know that for a fact. So I finally made a call to the Residential Tenancies Act in New Brunswick, had a conversation with them. They straightened it out, and I'm like, you know, I'm worried when this place sells. Is there anything that's rent control in the province? Nope, not really. So the place sold, and the first thing that happened was I had a property management company come in. Here's a new lease for you to sign. Here's $100 increase. Now the rent was basically at $900 a month.
Oh my.
So that's more than a 10% rent increase right away. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, and we're gonna do electrical work in the place. So I'm like, okay, no problem. I know you gotta do electrical work. It's an older place. They started on the work, but this property management company had no idea what they were doing. They brought in the electrical contractors, they did it, they drilled holes in the ceilings, the walls, everything like this. But when you take a fixture out of a room, you should have something to put up in its place. They didn't. I basically had to talk to the guys with the electrical contractors and say to them, well, guys, I have sight problems. I mean, I need a light in every room. So I wound up with basically like almost like a trouble light, like something you'd see in your basement, just a little fixture hanging down, not even hooked up to the ceiling, and that's your light. There you go. And I'm like, 2 months later, I'm going, I need to get the drywall done, guys. And yeah, are we ever going to get proper fixtures in here? Yeah, we're working on it. We're working on it. We're working on it. It seemed like they did not like the idea that I was questioning a $100 rent increase and make them so uncomfortable that they leave. At any rate, I did leave that place and moved over to where I am at now, High Street.
Is it better?
It is, in that I got a really good property management company now that I work really well with. It is an older place, so I understand on it, but they're very proactive. And really, I mean, that's it. A lot of people have this misconception that, you know, ACORN is all out to get the landlords or big business and, you know, stick it to them and that. All we're saying is treat people fairly. If you want us to work with you, then you know what? Then treat everybody the same way. Don't treat people like, hey, you don't have money or you're just a tenant and go away if you don't like it. That's not the way to do things. That's never the way to do things.
As an ACORN activist, and an anti-poverty activist, what laws do you feel need to be put in place in order to safeguard these issues that you talk about in terms of affordable rent and affordable cost of living? Because clearly since COVID, New Brunswick used to be one of the cheapest areas in Canada to live. Now everything's simply, since COVID, I'm sure you would agree, the 2020, circa 2020, 2021 has gone literally through the roof for almost everybody. Oh, yeah. No matter whether you're rich, poor, middle class, so-so class, whatever you call yourself. What laws, Peter, would you like to see put in place at both the federal and provincial level, and maybe even at the municipal level, to safeguard these things that make it affordable for all persons?
Well, there's a lot to this, so I'll try and unwrap this. The one thing that we have, and we achieved basically in 2024, was a rent cap in the province, basically at 3%. Now, that took a lot of convincing. 2022, we got a temporary rent cap at 3.8%. You know, a lot of people would say, well, it doesn't make much of a difference. The 2022 one, though, I will tell you on this. The place where I'm at now, they basically were able to propose giving me an 11% rise in the rent in 2022. But then we got a 3.8% rent cap in the province. So I basically went to them and said, well, you kind of have to abide by the rent cap. The property management company that I now have, and I mean, this is the great thing about them, they did not argue with that at all. They were like, yep, 3.8%, we're staying within the rules. That's the rules, that's what we're doing. That saved me $66 a month, me and my fiance. Now, $66 doesn't sound like much, but do the math on this, that's $792 a year. So if that hadn't happened, the rent would have gone up basically for 2022, 2023, and for 2024 by that $792 each year. Now that when we got that rent cap, it only went up $34 instead of $100. So that's the long-term cumulative effects that I want people to understand. This is why having a rent cap is so super important, because it may not seem like those increases are much, but if you're someone like myself on a fixed term income, $66 basically means a lot. I mean, that could be, for a single person, that's a week's worth of groceries. Maybe not quite now, but that's a whole nother matter. The other thing that we want to see in the province, and we've got a good housing minister, his name is David Hickey, is that we want to see the Residential Tenancies Act rewritten, specifically from a human rights standpoint, because we see things that happen. 2021, we got a report from when ACORN first joined, and that's actually when I joined ACORN, was in 2021. The reason that I joined, though, really, was there was another place on High Street here, and this was 12 families in a nice red brick building down the road. It was priced at $750 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. And this was all people of low and moderate income that lived there. And it was a great community, because all those 12, there was families in there. There was probably 10 kids living in this place. So the parents, they didn't have a lot of money for sitters and things like this. So what they do is, I got to go out on Saturday for a couple hours, do this. Okay, I'll watch your kids. Monday, I need you to watch my kid, and they'd be like, sure. And it was all that kind of thing. And they all got along great. The kids all got along. And then what happened was that same property management company that I was dealing with, who couldn't seem to get anything done and kept giving the excuse of, we got to do what the owner's telling us, which turned out to be a whole line of, I'll be polite here, BS. I'm not gonna, but yeah, they did the same thing to them. Except for them, it was a $250 increase, and then they were putting the hydro on, and I'm like, wow, that whole 12 family community in this one building is gone, and they were. I mean, I didn't want to see that. I want to see people kind of in those sort of situations, they're doing all they can to survive. So I want to see that happen. Federally, with ACORN, there's actually one really good thing on this, and this is 14 years in the making for ACORN Canada, federally. It had to do with predatory lenders, so places like Easy Financial, all those sort of payday loans type deal. I took out a payday loan for some furniture once, and I bought a computer first and then a couch. What happened with me was I paid off the computer, but then I ran into problems making payments on the couch and the love seat that I bought. They shut off my computer because I didn't make a payment on my couch and love seat.
Oh my.
And I'm like, wait a minute, the one does not equal to the other. Why would you even do that? So when they mentioned this, I was like all in going, yeah, definitely I want to talk about this, which I did. We got the payday lenders down from, they were charging up to 48% on some of these
crazy
loans. Plus, you have to have the insurance. Plus there's something else that's a hidden fee, and there's all kinds of this stuff that was written in there. So it was almost like, loan sharking in a way.
for sure.
Legal loan sharking.
Oh yeah.
They got it down to 35, no more than 35%. Not great, but it's down. The other thing that we tried to do, which was with the NSF fees that the big 5 banks can charge, used to be $48. ACORN last year got a really good victory on this, and this took effect March of this year. The banks can now only charge a $10 NSF fee, plus if there is more than one NSF fee charged within 24 hours, the second one is void. So you will not get charged $10, then $10, then $10. Before it was $45, $45, $45. And the people who are the low and moderate income try to fight this, and like, and they're like, maybe the wave won, but that didn't help. So really proud of that victory on this, and that wasn't just me. That was a lot of people across the country really speaking out, really taking this on. A lot of conversations with the government.
Do you find there's a lot of cooperative work between varying anti-poverty groups and human rights groups? Is there a collective meeting point for those folks to move forward in terms of fighting for affordable living for all persons and better lives for all persons?
Oh yeah, there is. Now, every different social justice group has a little bit of a variation on things.
For sure.
For instance, like I have an alliance with the New Brunswick Coalition of People with Disabilities. Now, some things we will say, hey, you know what, we care about what's going on with the disability community. The thing of it is, though, is they're the experts. I'm not. So I'm like, okay, so I can help you to advocate for it, but when it comes to having a conversation, that's definitely you. When it comes to housing, this is us. We can ask for things around accessibility and universal design for new builds, this sort of thing. But by far, when they ask for the definition, I'm like, gotta talk to these guys. I can provide you a little bit of information from them, but let's get you into the conversation as well. I found when I first started this an amazing thing. The labor unions. In particular here in Moncton, it's the Moncton and District Labor Council. They saw what we were doing, showed up to one of the rallies, and they are like, wow, you know what? We are so with you in this, and we so understand it. And it was amazing, because I talked to somebody who was with CUPE, and there was a big CUPE strike in 2022.
Sure was, yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody there, and I just showed up at the rally, and they're like, ACORN, so good to see you, and it was like Stephen Drost, who was the main person for CUPE at the time, and I'm like, great to see you, what do you guys need, we're into sport. I said to him, why would that be? He goes, CUPE's on strike right now. He goes, you know what? I got a guy who's basically just started with the union. He's new. He's not making as much money as everybody else. He's got a kid. He's got a wife and a kid. He's facing a $100 increase because there's no damn rent control in the province. Now he's on strike, and he's going, how am I going to eat next week? I got a kid and I got a wife. I got to figure this out.
There's a lot of those stories out there.
We're with you on this.
Yeah.
We support you, and definitely, workers' rates or tenant rates. It's kind of that way. It all kind of melds into one. So, there's a lot of this stuff out there, and varying degrees of things. I'm not one of the ones that would say I know everything that a homeless person needs 100%, but I will say the one thing about homelessness, which everyone complains about, is in the word homelessness. The biggest thing somebody needs, and the reason that they're homeless, and the reason the term homeless is used, is because they don't have a roof over their head that they can afford. That's the biggest problem with homelessness.
And further to homelessness, Peter, and I'm sure you'll agree, years ago it was people who had, and there are still a lot of people with addiction issues, gambling issues, and various other social issues that have kind of brought them to a point of homelessness. But now more and more on the streets, especially in the Greater Moncton area, we are seeing people who are working yet homeless. There's an increase of that.
Oh yeah. I've seen that myself. I'm not going to name this person or anything like this, but it was basically a relationship breakup, and just got to the situation, and the girl decided that it was best that she leaves, which is fine. So she went to a homeless shelter, and she's like, I'm going to be here for a couple of weeks and I'll figure it out and everything. And she went to like some counseling and this sort of thing. And pretty much within 2 months, she got everything together and got it all figured out. Now she wanted to get out of the homeless shelter. And because she wasn't working at the time, but she was looking for work, well, she had to depend on social assistance. The one thing though, she spent 6 months in a homeless shelter, basically because she could not find a single place, not a room, not an apartment, not a bachelor apartment, not anything that she could afford in the city. 6 months looking for that. What finally happened is she met someone else in the homeless shelter. He's also getting his stuff together, and that, so they started a relationship. So the two of them, they're like, okay, so our income can combine, maybe we can find something there. Still couldn't do it.
Crazy.
What happened was basically they teamed up with another couple who was also on social assistance in the home shelter. And finally, the four of them got a 2-bedroom apartment together. The apartment, though, it's not in the greatest of shape. A lot of times with the affordability and that, there's a lot of maintenance issues out there. Like, so it's kind of one of those constant things that we're kind of just trying to say, you know what? I always look at it with landlords and I say one thing. You bought the place, you want to make money, but you do have a legal obligation to take care of that place.
Yeah.
And
don't be a
really
slumlord, right?
Yeah.
Don't be a slum. There's a few of them out there.
Yeah. And the other part, though, is a lot of tenants will say, you know what, I'm afraid to make a complaint. Yeah, my kitchen sink is dripping. I'm afraid to go and call them. Well, that drip in the sink becomes a big problem real quick because over time it'll break. And some of them it's like, I'm so afraid to tell them. I have no protections. Mm-hmm. It's getting to that point where there's some protections, always more needs to be done. But that's neither here nor there. But that's kind of one of those things. There's one thing that I've noticed a lot of people really kind of took up, and I tried this out when I first did first couple of rallies with Acorn, was something that I say, and this is something that I would say to the viewers. If they're looking at this and they're thinking, yeah, this guy makes a lot of sense what he's saying. Consider this. One thing that I always say is one voice will always make an issue known, but together, many people speaking together as one on that same issue that one voice raised can lead to real change.
Collective action.
Yeah, oh yeah, and we've seen it. 2022, the provincial election. I worked with the chair and the national board and our organizers. We put together a 2024 provincial election platform. What we had on it was, first and foremost, rent control and changes to the Residential Tenancies Act in the province. Well, we got the rent control, and they're working on the Residential Tenancies Act. There's actually a survey out there right now where they're looking for tenants to add their voice to this. So please, if you're a tenant, even if you're a landlord, let the province know what's going on, because the biggest thing is they can't fix the issues if they don't know what they are. The other thing that was on this provincial platform was the hydro rates. The electricity rates in the province have gone right through the roof. It's gone up I would say at least 30% in the last 4 to 5 years. It's getting so that a lot of tenants now are paying their hydro, which puts them further and further behind. If someone's devoting more than 6% of their income towards electricity, then you're living in energy poverty. The majority of New Brunswickers are in energy poverty. So we talked to this, and the whole government actually, it's a small thing, but it's a step in the right direction, and right away it was something that was a little bit of relief. The Liberals under Susan Holt took the HST off the bill. It doesn't sound like much, more needs to be done, of course, but it's something. The other thing that we did was there was no addiction treatment centers or a lack of addiction treatment centers throughout the province. Since Susan Holt and the Liberal government took office, there is now a 50-bed facility in, I believe, Campbellton for addictions treatment. There's also another one that is in the works for somewhere around Fredericton, also going to be 30 beds. St. John, there's a treatment center that had only 20 beds. They're moving it up to 40. And there is talk about somewhere else, but I'm not sure where. The only other thing that we had on the platform that we haven't seen much happen, unfortunately, was around social assistance rates. So social assistance rates, they're very, very low. I call it mandated poverty. They have done a little bit here to raise it a little bit, but raising it only by the cost of living, I would say it needs to increase. If they were increased it, say, instead of the cost of living, which I believe last year was 3%.
Okay.
If they raise that 10, that would be one huge help, especially to people with disabilities who really, they need other things.
So you come from Southern Ontario.
Yep.
Ontario financially right now is in tremendous dire straits in many facets of their society. The same thing has hit the Maritimes in general, the Canadian East Coast, and many other areas. We hear about a lot of things in the United States. You're here now on the ground. Are you employed?
No. I was employed for quite some time. What happened actually was in 2022, I had a mini stroke. So with that, it kind of throws off a little bit in your day. You know, I sometimes, like, I'll be out trying to do something, physical labor or something like that, and I just kind of get that weird rush. It's atrial fibrillation, so it's like an irregular heartbeat. I have days where my heart rate goes up and then straight down. There's no normal, you know, there's no like this. It's right up and then straight down and then back up. What I found was basically trying to work even part-time, like 2-3 hours in, and all of a sudden it happens.
But your partner works, right?
Yeah, she does, and she is super supportive of me, you know, and that's the other thing on this.
Excellent,
you know,
excellent.
I still try and keep busy at home. You know, it's
Are your kids living with you, or do they live elsewhere?
my kids actually, they live with their mom in Truro, Nova Scotia, but I'm quite
Truro,
proud
Nova
of them.
Scotia. Yeah.
Actually, I do want to say April 20th is my daughter Alexa's birthday, so happy birthday, Alexa.
Happy birthday, Alexa.
Yeah, Dad loves you
Birthday,
so much.
Excellent.
You know? I'm super proud of her, actually. She chose something that kind of, I don't know if I had a role in this or not, but she knows of my fights with, you know, dealing with, you know, changes in life and disability and this sort of thing. Yeah, I'll be honest, I got a little bit, into a little bit of bouts of depression at times. I think everyone does, because, you know, they're kind of going, you know, I'm so frustrated, you know. She's actually she's actually going to Acadia University
Excellent.
and studying in the field of psychology.
Awesome.
Particularly what she wants to do is child psychology, which is in very, very short supply. As she said, you know, I look at people who wind up on the street, a lot of young people. What happened in their life that might have had that happen to them? It may not be bad parents, it could be a number of different things. The hardest thing is, if a kid is having a hard time, maybe I can stop some of that from happening and have them go down that really bad road. You know, and I love that. My son, Eric, he actually has a really, really good job. There's a warehouse there for home hardware in Truro, Nova Scotia. He is works overnights, and basically he's the order picker. So
How old is he?
He's going to be 22 in October.
Yeah, excellent.
So yeah, he didn't bother to go to university. You know, he's got Asperger's and you know, a little bit of learning disabilities. Not that that makes him, by any ways, dumb. He's got a certain way of thinking outside of the box that a lot of people wouldn't think about. You know,
Awesome.
and he's very, very like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this.
I've met them both. They're beautiful kids, Peter.
Oh yeah,
Beautiful kids, and you're blessed, I'm sure. And I see you as a social activist. Can I call you a social activist, an anti-poverty activist, a justice activist for justice? You're very, very passionate about affordable living for all persons through ACORN and through other means, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
One last question for you. Two last questions, actually. Peter, what do you feel is in the future for Peter?
Well, one thing that I am going to be working on, and I'm very passionate about this, is where Moncton Acorn just formed. There are some things that are wrong with municipal politics. You know, I look at, you know, restaurants and daycares and community centers and retail. All this stuff has to be licensed and registered with the city, and they're checked for health and safety bylaws. The scary thing is, All that's here in the province is a provincial bylaws code, and the province puts it out to the municipalities and says, here, follow this. It's not proactive. It has to be proactive. I seen a place that was just down the road here, and it was a rooming house. It caught fire because of faulty electrical system in there. The place did need some repairs. I know from the outside that it wasn't in the greatest of shape, but that was 12 people living in there. This electrical fire started in the basement, went up the one back part of the wall and went all the way across on the top floor. And I mean, if those people, somebody in there hadn't yelled and said fire, there could have been somebody dying there. I mean, these people lost everything they own. Everything. I want to make sure that that doesn't happen. I've seen places throughout my life, even in Ontario, I've seen this where, somebody will have like, 2 apartments in a place, and then they'll go, hey, let's build a third one in the basement. But let's not look at the bylaw codes and things like this. Let's just kind of do what we can do. Great for somebody who can do their own home repairs. But certain things like electrical, I'm sorry, you need a professional to look at this. The problem is that bylaws doesn't catch this. I've seen ones where there's illegal apartments, like in the basement. You have to have a window that you can get out as a second way out. If they don't have that, that place is a death trap. I look at what happened with the Airbnb in Montreal, I think was 2023. It was the same sort of thing that fell through the radar. The guy was renting out rooms at an Airbnb, what was used to be an office, without even a window in it. Like one way in, one way out, that was it. The fire was in the hallway, and somebody got trapped in their room and burnt to death and died in there.
That's terrible.
That is the scary thing about this. So I'm going to say, you know what, we need a landlord registration program in the city. It can be done, and it's not going to cost taxpayers any money. Just if a restaurant has to be licensed and registered for health and safety, daycare, retail business, all this sort of stuff. Why doesn't this happen? I mean, we see it everywhere else. It's a no-brainer. Do it. It's going to protect people in the public. The other thing that I want to see in Moncton, they're building what is called a big vision land development, 1,400 acres of new land, building housing there. But we need to see 20% of that be affordable, not just affordable, but affordable for people in core housing need. So someone who's working, say, a minimum wage job should be able to have at least like a bachelor apartment of their own at 30% of their wages. It seems a little bit hard to do, but you know what? It can happen. There are ways out there. There's plenty of provincial, federal programs that can help in this. All we want to see is that, I don't want to see a homeless crisis grow. I've seen people die on the streets. I think it was 2023 it was 2023, January. There was a homeless encampment at High and Park Street, and I was seeing the police there, an ambulance there, and then later a hearse. And it was a woman that had been homeless for so long and everything. She froze to death.
No.
I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see that happen to anybody. People make mistakes. Life is life, but you know what? You got to give those folks hope, And that's me. I see people down on their luck and everything, and they're stressed out and whatever is going on. Sometimes all they want to hear is, I see you. You've got a voice. I'm listening to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Kind words will go a long way, folks.
Sure
rather
can.
than, you're homeless, get out of here,
So the vision for the future for Peter is to stay the course, correct?
Oh yeah.
Stay the course. Yeah. Peter, to the people that are out there struggling, and I know you're a proud member of ACORN, people, as you said, want to be seen. And there are people on the street struggling. There are people who even have homes that are struggling in grave fear of losing those homes, and it very well may happen to many, sadly enough. What do you say to those people in closing?
Well, have faith, and you have members who are elected by the government. You have an MP that is answerable to you as a constituent. Same thing for the province. Same thing for the city. You also have a mayor as well as a city councilor. Here's the thing. You know what? Sitting back saying there's nothing I can do, start asking those folks the hard questions. I mean, folks, we got a municipal election coming up. Here's the one thing that I do. These guys come over and they say, hey, we want your vote. Really? Okay. So what are you doing about this? Because I'm going through these problems. I had it before where I didn't get along with a local MLA in this area. Not going to give his name, but one day I called him up and talked to him about one thing, and then I called him up about another, and then I talked to him about another, and he's always trying to go, well, it's not provincial, it's federal, no, it's municipal. One day he comes to me and he goes, why do you keep on calling me? I said, because I'm a constituent in your district, and because I want to hear what you can do for me. My vote got you elected. So you know what? I want you to try and work for everyone. And if you can't get anywhere with them, then other things like ACORN, for instance, reach out to us. Because you know what? Everybody's story is meaningful. I've got people who are like, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me, and I'm like, really? Well, how about this? Instead of just being upset and saying there's nothing that I can do, let us take your story, expose it out to the public, and then have the public go, wait a minute, this is wrong. That has a lot to do, that can help a lot of people. So that would be the one thing that I would say, don't lose hope. Life is always a rocky road. There's a lot of ups and downs and twists and turns and everything like this. Don't lose hope, do your best every day. And, sometimes if you just want someone to talk to, don't be afraid to just talk to someone else, a trusted friend, an ally, a comrade. Even you, John, I've hopped on the bus with you sometimes and I've been frustrated and it's like, you look like you had a bad day. Well, yeah, I did.
Yes, sir.
See, that's the way on it, is because sometimes all you got to do as the other person is just listen and say, I get you. Here's what I would say. I'm not the expert, but here's what I'm going to tell you. Kind words mean everything sometimes. And some people, they're at the edge of doing something dumb. If you can stop them from doing that one dumb thing that completely ruins their lives, or they commit suicide, if you can prevent that, that's what you want to do. So always look out for each other.
Life is a road, and
Yeah.
where there's life, there's hope. That's for sure, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And there's always something that you can do.
Peter, thank you so much for your time today, brother. I'm going to take some B-roll of where we are, the Amal Community Center on High Street in the Greater Moncton area here on Canada's Eastern Seaboard. I'm going to, following this episode, Peter, I'm going to put an additional video on where we'll be talking about this. I'm going to do up a video on the Amal Center, and I thank you for your time today, Peter. Take care.
Perfect. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too.